Hello class, welcome to 4.2a, Measures of Central Tendency. Measures of central tendency, there's three different ones we look at. That would be your mean, median, and mode. Hopefully all this sounds familiar, but a little review here is mean is just the average, which is when you add up all of your numbers, then divide by the number of numbers. What you see beside that is that little x bar is equal to the sum of x over n. That is going to be important when we go to look for how to do this in our calculator. Other one we can look at is median. This is when you're ordered numbers numerically, and it would be the middle number. You may need to add the two middle numbers and divide by 2. When we end up with an even amount of numbers, you need to find the middle of them. And lastly, mode, this is the number that appears the most. This one will not be able to find in our calculator as we show you how to do that today. If the data has an outlier, so we've been talking about outliers in our scatter plots, but if it has an outlier, the best representation of the data would be your median, because when you look at your median, that's going to cross off those big numbers or those really small numbers and just kind of more accurately find you the middle of the data. Where if there is no outlier, this is when the mean would be your best representation of the data. So two things to consider as we kind of analyze these measures of central tendency. All right, let's take a look at how to do this. So just to review how we put these into our calculator, we first start with our stat to put our data into list 1. We then are going to hit the stat button, arrow to calc, and then select the one variable stats. So what that's going to look like is hit stat, edit, create your list. Okay, most of these are already in there, so if you need to pause to get yours in your calculator, please do so. All right, and once we have all those numbers matching up, we hit stats. We're going to arrow over to the calc, one variable stats, the first one, and then we can just go down to calculate or hit enter to get our list. Once we get our list, this is where we can start answering mean, median, mode. So let's see if we can pause here, answer a few questions. All right, so what we are looking at this point is, remember, the mean is going to be the x bar, and it's going to be the summation of all of your x's over the n. Now, when we look at this in your calculator, the x bar already has an answer of 120.75. That's what we're looking for as a final answer. But if you look at the summation of x, that is going to be already adding up all of those values for us, which is what we would do if we had to hand calculate all of these. And then if we look down there at the end, that's going to be our number of data that we came from the list. So we are going to divide by 8, and if we do 966 divided by 8, that gives us a 120.75. So that's mean. If we're going to look for median, we're going to have to scroll down on the one variable stats, and we are looking for this median here, median of 121. Now we are going to use all of these values a little bit later, but for right now, we're just looking for median at 121. The only one your calculator does not do for you is going to be your mode. The mode is looking for the most often, and we are going to look through our list, and in this case, it looks like 118 is going to end up being the one that occurs most often. And then the last question with this is, which one best represents the data? Well, if we look through here, the main thing we're looking for is if it has an outlier or not. Right now, I'm looking through here, and this 73 looks way out of place. So that is going to indicate to us that we want to use the median, because when we find the median or try to find the middle, that's going to do a better job of eliminating those outliers. If there was nothing out of place, if there was no outliers, that is when we use the mean. So let's keep looking at a few more examples. Example 2, use the same data set but exclude the outlier. What are the new measures of central tendency? Which measure best represents the data? So if we get rid of that outlier, we want to use the remaining numbers to calculate our mean, median, and mode. Pause here to have you run through the few calculations, and we'll go over those answers. Okay, looking at first our mean, looking in for the x bar, our summation of x and n. We want to get in the habit of identifying them and calculating out that 127.57. If we scroll down to the median, we got 124. And mode, most often, is still 118. Which one best represents the data set? Well, now that we got rid of that outlier, that means the mean would be our better estimation of the central measure of tendency. How do these values compare to the ones without the outlier? Well, because the outlier was smaller than the original, this is going to cause the median and mean to both be increased because we no longer have that really small value bringing all of our values down. Okay, let's try the rest of the examples. Example 3, find the measures of central tendency for the following sets of data. So pause here and take a minute to plug those in your calculator and find those. What we should now be looking at is finding a mean of 9.6, median of 7, and in this situation where there is no mode, we're going to use none. We do not want to put a 0 in there because 0 is a number and could potentially be an answer or could be a number of things that does occur. If we take a minute to do the second part, so again, adding 10 to each value, let's just take a minute to pause here and recalculate. And when you get done that, we should have a mean of 19.6, median of 17, and still a mode of none. So what changes happen when you add the same number to each value in your data set? Well, we were adding 10, so all of our central tendencies would also go up by 10. Not including the mode, just because the mode continues to not have one in this situation. Other situations it would. And again, this is the same if we would add or subtract from those values. All right, let's take a look at example 4. The following are the prices of different models of cell phones. Find the measure of central tendency and identify the measures that best represent the data. All right, so we take a minute here to plug all those into our calculator and calculate those. When you are done, we should be coming up with a mean of 913.29, median of 799, and also mode of 799. Now that the store is offering a discount of 25%, what are the new measures of central tendency? Well, first thing we need to do is multiply by 0.75. Instead of subtracting 25% off, we can always just multiply by 0.75. And then we're going to get a new set of data. So take a minute to plug those in. And let's check our work. What we should now see is a mean of 684.96, median of 599.25, and a mode of 599.25. So what did you see when we multiplied each number in the data set? Well, this would also be a change of that 25%. Everything decreased by 25% throughout our data set. All right, and let's take a look at example 5. All right, last example. A wrestling team of 12 students has an average weight of 182 pounds. If 2 students are added to the team and the mean changes to 185 pounds, what do we know about the weight of the new wrestlers? Well, this is just kind of bringing a little different aspect of knowing what our average or our mean is equal to the sum of all of our x's and divided by the number. Okay, so just kind of using this equation up top. So if we know a wrestling team has 12 students and the average weight of 182, we can take a look at setting that up. 182 equals the sum of x divided by 12, because we know it was a 182-pound average or mean, and then we know that there was 12 students. The thing is, we don't know what that sum of all those values are. And if we added 2 students, we know that the mean changed to 185. So if we took the sum divided by 14, that equals 185. Well, what that's going to know about the new wrestlers is we can't find out a whole lot. But what we can find out is if we just solve for that total sum and start talking about the sum of x is now equal to 12 times 182 and get the 2184. And then if we go over here, we can say let's multiply by 14. And now we know our total sum of our x values is 2590. What that does tell us about the 2 new wrestlers is that if we take that 2590 minus the 2184, what that can tell us here is the combined weight of those 2 wrestlers is 416 pounds. Now, that's going to also follow up with question B. If one of the new wrestlers weighs 170 pounds, what is the weight of the second wrestler? So that means if we know the totals 416, we know that this is going to add to our value and say that they would be 246 pounds. All right, so that's it for today. Again, making sure you finish up your worksheets and assignments in Canvas. All right, good luck. Have a nice day.